Hey, what's up guys? James from Junkyard Fox. Thank you so much for joining us on this very exciting and special video. Today we're going to be unveiling my personal knife design. So this knife I designed a few months back. I have had the basic general shape and idea rattling around in my brain for about a year already, and we finally have a prototype in hand. So it is my pleasure to introduce you guys to the Junkyard Fox Snake Eater knife. This beauty right here. So the point of this video is I'm going to elaborate on the idea behind it, the philosophy of use, who made it, the specs, all that stuff. So if you're interested, hang around and let's get to it. Okay folks, so as I said, this is going to be an introduction. So if you're expecting to see right now this knife making a fire, roasting cactus, processing game, this is not the video for that. Be patient, trust me, you will see this knife in future adventures. It will taste blood. But for now, like I said, I just want to get the general idea and summary of how this knife came to be, all that stuff. So first of all, let's begin with who made this knife. This knife was made by a gentleman named Woody Smith of Woody Smith Knives, or Wood Steel Knives. And he's something of a newcomer to the knife making scene, but he's extremely talented, and I definitely want to get more eyes on his stuff because he's really great. Now, Woody Smith, he's in Washington, and he was the one who took up the challenge of making this knife. Now, first of all, I got to tip my hat to Woody, not only for making a great knife, but for just being a gentleman and being patient. I understand I can be a very difficult person to work with. I'm something of a control freak, so I found myself messaging him on Instagram like every 5 minutes. Woody, don't forget this part. Woody, let's alter this over here, like all this stuff. He had every right in the world to tell me at one point to just shut up and let him do his job. But he didn't, and he was very patient, and I understand that this design could be a little bit tricky. So once again, Woody Smith Knives, check out his Instagram so you can see his stuff. He's got great things in the future coming for him. So then from here, let's go ahead and talk about specs of the blade, and then we'll break down my influences for it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the specs out of the way. Now, the overall length of this blade is 9 3/4 inches. Now, the blade itself is made out of AEBL stainless steel. It is 3/32 inch thick, meaning this thing is just very thin, with a slight clip point. And as you can tell, it is a blended grind. So it begins life down here as a Scandinavian grind for woodworking, and then it quickly tapers off into this very thin flat grind. Once again, very thin blade, and it's a flat grind. So woodworking over here, and then over here it's going to deal with game processing, gutting fish, chopping veggies, for camp cooking, all that stuff. And that is Woody's logo, the little woodpecker right there. The Rockwell hardness of this blade is 58 to 60. Oh, and of course, a killer 90-degree spine. Okay, moving on to the handle. I have something of like a barrel-shaped handle made out of green canvas micarta. And I really like how green canvas micarta looks. It always reminds me the pebbly skin of like a velociraptor in Jurassic Park. Now, realistically, guys, velociraptors were covered in feathers, but, let my childhood nostalgia have fun. So, yeah, I like that look. And, of course, it's going to be grippy. It's not polished micarta. And then turning it this way, you see that there is red G10 liners. Once again, my childhood geekiness rears its head. And where does green with red liners show up in? I'll let you guys guess that one. And then back here, last but not least, we have a pommel for crushing items, whether you're processing yucca root to make soap or crushing down pecans, something like that, shellfish. And there's a hole for your lanyard as well. And I think that just about covers the specs. And once again, big props to Wood Steel Knives. So let's go ahead and talk about my influences for making this knife. And longtime viewers, you're not going to be surprised here. So it's not just these two, but the influence of these two blades are going to be the most prevalent, as you can see. And I'll elaborate on each one of these blades and why I love them and what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and how the new blade will take care of those weaknesses. Okay, so first things first, the shape, the most obvious thing. When you look at the Snake Eater, you can definitely tell where my influences comes when it comes to the design, which comes from the Green River Hunter, and just basic old world butcher knives in general. You know, I'm far more of someone who enjoys hunting and gathering and processing game and trapping and all that stuff. So this knife really appeals to me. I love cooking as well. I'm very culinary inclined. So yeah, you always see us, cooking up jambalaya and fajitas and stews and all this stuff. So there's a lot of slicing. You don't really see me doing as much bushcraft stuff. So you look at the design. Overall same size, overall same thickness. Some things have changed though. If you look closely at the blade, for example, the features on the Snake Eater are a little bit more exaggerated. There's a bigger belly for slicing than the Green River. Also, the hump at the top is a little bit higher. It's a little bit more prevalent, like a crest of a bird or like a meat-eating dinosaur like Allosaurus, and I like that. Now, for now, I still got to test out this blade and process with it. This might, get in the way at some point, so maybe I'll shave it down a little bit for future knife. But for now, I'm really liking it. It gives it personality. And then the handles as well. Similar shape, as you can tell, but I did make the handles here more beefy because these Green River scales can be quite thin, and people with large hands, this can get quite uncomfortable after a while. So these are a little bit more filled out. There's more to hold on to, but the general shape is there. Okay, so the strengths and weaknesses of the Green River. So if you've been watching my channel for the last 2 years, you know that this thing has been a mainstay on my belt. It was love at first sight as soon as I held it, and I love how thin it is, and I love the flat grind. It's great for slicing. You guys know here that I love cooking, and I also love processing, catching game, eating wild foods, skinning the outer layer of a cactus fruit, to get to the good stuff. So this works great. The drawback is the Rockwell hardness is pretty low on this knife. Now, this knife has pretty much been unaltered for almost 200 years. It hasn't really changed. And in many ways, I feel it is a little bit outdated. Rockwell hardness is low, meaning that the edge retention isn't as great as I wish it was. Now, if you're like me and you're constantly honing or stropping your knives as soon as you use them, it's not a big deal. But if I find myself somewhere for a longer distance of time, 3-4 days, and I don't have a rod with me, that can get a little annoying. Another thing is it's high carbon steel. I don't know, it's a foggy day out here, so I don't know if it's coming through. But I have a really strong patina here. Now, I come from the Boba Fett school of fashion, so scratches, dents, scuffs, weathering, I love it. It looks cool for aesthetics. However, putting away fashion and getting into practicality, I want something that's going to be a lot more resistant to water, to the elements, to snow, and all that stuff. So I definitely knew that eventually I would want to upgrade something like this to a steel that's more resistant to the elements and can hold its edge better. While we're speaking of something that needs to be more resistant to the elements, is the handle. Wooden handles, very old world, but it's wood. It's an organic material, so it can, deteriorate in time, just like the steel with the elements. So I wanted to upgrade those things. And then, of course, the handle can be a little thin if you're going to be doing something like feathering for a while. Now let's talk about the second obvious influence, which is going to be the Moroccos Bowl. You can see that's where I got my idea for that multi-grind, where it starts off as a Scandi, then it turns into a flat. And I love that. This was my first time experiencing something like that when I bought the Moroccos Bowl. Once again, longtime viewers will know that I love this knife. I've been using it for about 3 years, and I still think it's the best knife for the money. $35, you get something that's comfortable. Stainless steel, 12C 27N stainless steel. Killer 90-degree spine. Once again, Scandinavian for woodworking, flat grind for cooking or filleting fish, whatever you like. And yeah, really great knife. I believe in it so much that if I was to walk into a bar in the rough side of town and I was to order a drink and across from me I was to hear 4 rowdy, burly bikers badmouth this knife, I would go up and beat them all, because I will defend this knife. It's great. Now, that doesn't mean that it's perfect. There are some things that can be improved upon. For example, once again, I like, gutting animals and all that because I like eating wild food. This small clip point right here, I'm not too comfortable with. So a lot of times, say I'm skinning a rabbit and I'm opening the belly up. I think this is really close to, the intestines. It can be done. I've done it before. I've skinned carp and, gutted carp and trout and all that. It's just a little too close for comfort for me. Where something with the clip point that, this is kind of riding a little above where the guts would be, works better. Another thing that can be improved upon, since we're already improving upon the design, is that this knife is not a full tang, meaning that the blade doesn't go all the way through. It stops somewhere around right here underneath. That's not a big deal to me. I think a full tang is overrated, to be honest, as long as you have common sense, you know your environment, and you respect your gear. However, since we're already improving upon, let's just go ahead and make it a full tang. And like I said, the handles of the Green River, same thing here. This handle is rubber and plastic, which is, really comfortable and very resistant to the elements, but rubber and plastic can be damaged. So, of course, my Cardo will improve upon that. And by the way, we have a review on this blade up here, if you want to check it out. All right, moving on to a couple other influences. Ironically, they're also a Moro and a Green River. So when I got the the Garberg, this was my first time trying a stainless steel. This is 14C28N Sandvik steel, and I really loved it. Now, I come from the Dave Canterbury-inspired generation of outdoorsmen, so, for a long time I was using carbon. So this was my first time being exposed to stainless, and I really liked it. So, I definitely wanted a stainless steel blade. Also, I really loved the pommel. I think it's something that isn't too obtrusive, but it can be useful if needed. Really like it. So, of course, I decided to improve upon that and make a pommel on mine as well, just like this one. And then moving on to another Green River. I forgot what this one's called, but the Buffalo Skinner or something like that. Very similar to the Green River Hunter, but as you can tell, the hump is a little higher up here. And just a little bit of an influence there. Okay, so let's talk philosophy of use. Why did I make this knife? So, longtime viewers will know that for the last 2 years, I've really been struggling on which knife I love more, the Green River or the Moroccos Bowl. I love both those knives. So at the end of the day, put them together, upgrade everything, and there we go. So what's the philosophy of use for this blade? What would it be great at doing, and what it would not be so great at doing? So once again, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I love cooking. Whether I'm just relaxing in a car camping trip and I'm chopping up veggies and meat to make a stew on a cold winter's day, or making a jambalaya, fajitas, all that stuff. I love cooking even at home. And I also love eating a lot of wild foods. I'm more of a hunter-gatherer, if I had to label myself, than I am a bushcrafter or a prepper. Whether I'm catching trout or catfish or trapping pack rats and stuff like that. So a very thin grind, a very thin blade thickness, and that flat grind is going to work incredibly well for slicing. I've been using it in the kitchen for the last 4 days, and it works like a dream. Now, the one weakness I forgot to mention on the Green River is that being a full flat has its weakness being out in the outdoors, because though you can carve with the flat grind, it's just not as effective. And when you have something like a Green River that starts to lose its edge rather quickly, it's just not really conducive for that. So by adding a flat grind here, it helps me carve notches to make figure 4 deadfalls. Or after I have food cooking, after I got that stew simmering over the fire, I can carve up, a spoon or a spatula around the fire. So that's just going to make it more effective. So once again, a lot of hunting, gathering if you're into that stuff, or a lot of camp cooking. It's going to excel at that. Other features that I really enjoy is that 90-degree spine. Now, of course, everybody knows the 90-degree spine can be used with a ferro rod to make a fire. But there's other uses for a 90-degree spine that I don't really see a lot of people thinking about. And you've seen them in our videos before. First things first, this has helped me with fish. If I go fishing and I catch bluegills, some kind of sunfish, bass, trout, you've seen me before where I'll get them and I'll just scrape off all those scales, and it just makes it a lot easier. Now, can I use my blade to do that? Yes, but I don't want to unnecessarily stress my edge of my blade when I can just use this back here. So yes, this helps with fish. And then, of course, this is AEBL stainless steel. Now, I'll admit I am new with AEBL steel, but so far I'm really liking the Mora steel, so hopefully it's something like that. So far, so good. I'm really liking it. So that stainless is going to really help, against blood or, the juices of tomatoes and stuff like that. So it's not going to wear down so easily, the steel. And then last but not least, back here is we have a pommel for crushing things. So once again, like I've showed before in videos, whether you're pounding down pecans, crushing them to open them up, or shellfish like clams, this is going to help you out. Before, you've also seen us where we dig up root from a yucca, which you can turn into soaps, but you got to break down those fibers. So this can help you out. Now, you can argue that you don't really need a pommel to do any of those things. You could just find a nearby rock, but I'd rather just have it with me. Just might as well make the knife as resourceful as I can. And so far this is where this design is coming from. Oh, and of course I have some scallops I forgot to talk about earlier right here that can help me, once again, whether I'm skinning game or I'm just, chopping veggies in the kitchen. Look how comfortable that is. So let's talk about what this knife is not going to excel at and what it's not designed to do. So first things first, guys, keep in mind it is 3/32 inch thick blade, meaning it's very thin. You got a very thin Scandinavian grind. So this knife is lightweight. It's not meant to be some big burly beast of a knife. So if you're expecting to be chopping, if you're the kind of person who likes chopping down trees, testing their knives to, chop down, saplings and stuff, this is not going to be the knife for that. If you're in the jungles of Costa Rica and you need to be chopping, through vines and stuff, this is not the knife for that. And let's be realistic. I'm just going to, this is just my personal belief. This is my personal philosophy. I think chopping is a very silly exercise. It's unnecessarily dangerous. You could be chopping with your tool that's not designed for it anyway, and it can slip and you can get yourself in the knee, in the foot, or someone nearby, your buddy nearby, your dog that's sniffing around and it slips and it could hurt him, or you're just putting stress on the blade unnecessarily, guys. Just chopping is just not needed to me, in my opinion. I think you could just, if you have a folding saw in your haversack, which everybody does, or you could just find ways around it. Find already a downed tree, something like that. Or, once again, like an axe or something of a chopping knife. You don't need to do that with this knife. It was never designed to do it because you never see me doing it. Now, if I lived somewhere up north, I'd probably be singing a different tune. But living here in the American Southwest, I've never needed to do it, so that's not something that came to my mind designing my knife. Now, once again, because it is a very thin blade, guys, keep in mind 5/32 inch thick, with this very high Scandi grind, it's not going to be the greatest at things like batoning either. Now, can it baton? Yes. For the last 3 years that I've been using the Mora and the Green River, I've been able to baton just fine. However, common sense goes a long way. Common sense will save you far more than any piece of gear, any knife will. So if you know your environments, you know which is a softwood, what's a hardwood, all that stuff. Even if you don't, this looks too big, this looks too knotty. So check it out. I know for a fact that this is pine, so it's a softwood. Also, just by looking at it, I don't see a lot of knots on it. I know for a fact this blade can handle this just fine. I mean, look at the Scandi portion. It'll fit in there pretty good. So this works. There's nothing wrong with pushing your gear, to make it sweat a little bit. Get it out of its comfort zone, but don't torture test your gear either. I don't believe in torture testing. I find it foolish. So even though this is still pine, let's just, for example, say that this is something harder. Hickory, oak, something like that. And you're going to try to go through with this, you're just asking for trouble. And once again, I know some people really enjoy torture testing and pushing their gear to the limit. To me, it makes about as much sense as exposing your child's lungs, testing your child's lungs by exposing them to mustard gas. It's abuse, and it's nobody's fault but your own. So once again, this can handle things. Just be smart about it. So yeah, that's just basically what it is. Just this is something a little bit more focused than some big burly survival knife with 1/4 inch thick and all that stuff. So ultimately, for me, I designed a knife that's going to be perfect for what I do when I'm out here on my belt. I want something that's a perfect belt knife for me. Now, I would consider this something to be an adaptable knife, something of a jack of all trades knife with the woodworking, with the skinning up here, with the pommel. Now, there's a saying, a jack of all trades is a master of none. And that's meant to say that, something that can do everything can't do anything in particularly great. However, I gotta disagree with that. I see the point in that, but I gotta disagree because a jack of all trades can always find a way to survive, as opposed to something that's specialized. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here, guys, but let's take the cheetah, for example. The cheetah is an animal that's designed for speed. So its body is just muscle. It's just designed for speed. Very little fat, very little brawn in terms of strength to fight. So even though it can run up to 70 miles per hour and take down an antelope, if a hyena or a jackal walks by, that cheetah cannot fight them. It knows that it will lose a fight, so it takes off running, and it lost its meal. It also depends on the plains. As humans advance into the wilderness, it has no way of adapting. It can't run fast, through obstructions. So its weakness, its numbers are dwindling because it's what it's designed for. That environment is running out. Now let's look at the polar bear, a very strong animal designed for the Arctic, for swimming in cold water, for walking on glaciers. As this planet warms up, it's getting harder for them to hunt. They're getting really hot, so they're having a hard time adapting, these two. Now let's look at an animal that is adaptable, like the fox. Now a fox can survive as a scavenger. A fox can survive eating berries or hunting. And he can even survive eating garbage. There's times I've seen foxes out in the city nights, and they're running around through alleys and they're eating through garbage. I wouldn't be surprised they're eating people's pets. Take that what you will, but you'll never hear of a fox being an endangered animal. So, little philosophy there for you. So yeah, I want something that's adaptable for what I like doing, and just take care of it. Okay, folks, so that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed getting a sneak peek at the snake eater. So if you did, go ahead and be sure to give us a like and comment down below if you have any questions or anything like that. Let's get a conversation going. I'm very excited. It's such a great experience to see something that you had as a sketch for months, on a paper, and all of a sudden somebody makes it for you, and it's really fun. But now comes the dialing in process from theory to practice. So I want to test this knife for several months, processing different types of game, cooking with it, camping in different environments, different regions, different seasons, to see how I'm liking it. Will I love a EBL steel in 6 months from now? We don't know. We got to test it out. Can the handle be, a little bit more comfortable when I'm batoning or something? Once again, we got to test it out. So here comes the dialing in, the focusing it down, because I'm hoping to eventually start selling these every once in a while, making small batches. So be sure to follow Woody Smith down below if you're interested. And yeah, I'm hoping to have batches made pretty soon, and I'm very excited, guys. So thank you so much, guys. Once again, like and comment, and also down below in the description box is ways that you can help this channel grow. Our Patreon, Amazon store, Cuervo Negro's music, all that stuff. And that's about it for us, guys. So we're gonna get back to town and eat a nice fat cheeseburger. So thank you so much once again. We'll see you guys next week. Now go outside and get your boots dirty.